It was a day like any other in James Republic. Kids went to school, people went to work, the sun was shining, then everything changed in an instant. Krazil, their neighboring country, launched a surprise attack without any warning. They bombed bridges and military bases, causing widespread destruction and chaos. They sent tanks across the border, advancing rapidly into James Republic territory. Krazil's president gave a speech to justify the attack. He said James Republic was weak and unable to defend itself. He claimed they had something that rightfully belonged to Krazil, stirring nationalistic fervor. This was the start of a war no one wanted, but everyone feared. The declaration shocked the world, sending ripples through the international community. Most experts thought a war was impossible, given the close ties between the two nations. Krazil and James Republic shared economic ties, with trade routes and agreements in place. They traded goods and had agreements in place that benefited both countries. But the Krazil president had been using aggressive rhetoric for months, escalating tensions. He blamed James Republic for his country's problems, diverting attention from internal issues. He riled up his citizens with nationalistic speeches, creating a fervor for conflict. This made the invasion less surprising, but no less shocking to the people of James Republic. Panic spread through James Republic. People rushed to supermarkets. They wanted to stock up on food and water. Long lines formed at gas stations. Everyone was scared and confused. The government declared a state of emergency. They called for international help. They also started drafting citizens into the military. James Republic had to defend itself. In Krazil, things were different. The mood was a strange mix of excitement and fear. Many people supported the war. They believed the propaganda about James Republic. They thought victory would be swift and glorious. Others were scared. They knew war meant death and destruction. They worried about their loved ones in the military. They also feared the economic consequences of the war. The fighting was fierce. Both sides suffered heavy losses. Krazil's army was bigger, but James Republic's soldiers fought bravely. They knew their homeland was at stake. The turning point came at the Battle for Bridgetown. This was a strategic city. It controlled access to important supply routes. James Republic defended it with everything they had. The Battle for Bridgetown was long and bloody. Both sides fought street by street. They used tanks, artillery, and even hand-to-hand combat. The James Republic army eventually won, but at a high cost. The city lay in ruins. Thousands of soldiers were dead. But this victory gave James Republic a much-needed morale boost. It showed the world they would not give up without a fight. Section 4. The world reacts, condemnation and support. The international community condemned Krazil's aggression, expressing their disapproval through various channels. The United Nations called for a ceasefire, urging both sides to come to the negotiation table. They imposed sanctions on Krazil, aiming to cripple its economy and force a retreat. These sanctions targeted the country's economy and leaders, hoping to create internal pressure. Many countries stopped trading with Krazil, isolating it further on the global stage. They wanted to pressure them to stop the war and seek peaceful resolutions. However, not everyone opposed Krazil. Some nations had different perspectives. A few countries supported their actions. They had their reasons, rooted in history and politics. Some had old grudges against James Republic, fueling their support for Krazil. Others saw an opportunity to advance their own interests, leveraging the conflict for gain. This support wasn't enough to change the course of the war, but it added layers of complexity. But it did make the situation more complex, complicating diplomatic efforts. The war was no longer just between two countries. It had broader implications. It became a proxy conflict, drawing in larger powers indirectly. Larger powers were involved indirectly, each with their own agendas. This increased the risk of the war escalating into something much bigger and more dangerous, threatening global stability. Section 5. Picking up the pieces, a fragile peace. After months of relentless fighting, both sides were utterly exhausted, their resources depleted and their spirits worn thin. Krazil's early advances had stalled, unable to push further into enemy territory. Their economy was suffering under the weight of severe international sanctions, causing widespread shortages and unrest. James Republic had held on, but at a terrible cost. Their cities were damaged beyond recognition. Their people were grieving the loss of loved ones and homes. Both sides realized that a decisive victory was impossible. They reluctantly agreed to come to the negotiation table. The peace talks were tense and difficult. with each side wary of the other's intentions. Both sides blamed each other for the war, each unwilling to fully accept responsibility for the devastation. They had demands that seemed irreconcilable, with each side holding firm on their positions. But they knew they had to find a way out of the conflict, for the sake of their people and their nation's futures. In the end, they reached a peace agreement, a fragile truce that would hopefully lead to lasting peace. Krazil withdrew its forces from James' Republic, a significant step towards rebuilding trust. They agreed to pay reparations for the damage they caused, a gesture aimed at healing the wounds of war, but many issues remained unresolved, lingering like shadows over the newfound peace. The border between the two countries remained tense, a constant reminder of the fragile nature of their peace. The war left deep scars on both nations, scars that would take generations to heal. It would take years, if not decades, for them to fully recover from the physical and emotional wounds of the conflict, but there was hope for a better future.